We do believe that vaccinated people are much safer when they're wearing those masks indoors. If you are fully vaccinated, you can shed your mask.
We knew this months ago. Months ago. They were all lying to you. You can take off your mask if you're vaccinated. Well, who's been telling you that for months on end? Who's been saying that? But every time we have said that for months on end, we have worried that YouTube will take down our videos, or that Apple will somehow censor us, or that Facebook will hit us with a fact check. Why? Well, because your public health experts have been lying to you. See, here is the thing, and this has been a thing throughout the pandemic. Science is a process. Science is rooted in data. It's rooted in hypotheses, which are then either falsified or held up by the data. Science is not, in fact, a group of quote unquote scientists. Okay, it's not an institution. Science is not Anthony Fauci. Science is not Rochelle Walensky. Science is not any of these jokers. Science is a process of verifying truth or falsity. And so those of us who have been looking at the data all along knew that once you are vaccinated and you are 2 weeks past your final vaccination, you don't need to wear a mask anymore. In fact, in these very offices, I was very into masking because I didn't want to infect my parents. I was very into masking up until the point at which they got vaccinated and I got vaccinated. And at that point, I said to everyone in the offices, if you don't want to wear a mask and you have the option to get vaccinated, if you choose not to get vaccinated, that's a you problem. If you choose to wear a mask, that's a you problem. Once you're vaccinated, you don't have to care. I've been saying this for months. You know why? Because I read the studies. You know why? Because I followed the data. You know why? Because I didn't listen to the dullards in the public health establishment who have been infected with politics. We were told for a year that Donald Trump infused all of his COVID response with politics. And they pointed to his supposed pressure on the CDC, which the CDC denied. And they pointed to his so-called pressure on Anthony Fauci, which Fauci denied. Okay, and then Joe Biden came into office, and the entire public health establishment just started mirroring whatever Joe Biden wanted politically. They started going soft on whether schools should reopen, even though the data said that schools should be open. They started suggesting that vaccines weren't all that effective. They started suggesting that workplaces should continue to socially distance even after people have been vaccinated. Joe Biden was appearing publicly 20,000 feet away from anybody outdoors, and he was still masking. Kamala Harris was kissing her husband on tarmacs through a mask, even though both of them had been vaccinated. None of this was in compliance with science. All of it was politically driven bullcrap, because as I said, the goal of the Biden administration was to gin up a feeling of panic and unease and unrest so that they could foster all of this massive government growth. The idea was that if we are in the middle of a crisis, then we still need more government. And that, of course, was using every crisis as an opportunity. And if the crisis was already on the wane, as it has been for months, then you just manufacture a feeling of crisis. Okay, so yesterday, the public health experts decided, based on no new data, none, that everything I've been saying for the past several months is correct. Okay, now, it's very important to note here the timing. Again, all of this data has been widely available for months. It's been available since February and March. And we have known since even before then that if you had COVID and you had developed antibodies to COVID, you were not going to infect anyone. And yet everybody was busy screaming at Rand Paul, suggesting that if Rand Paul stripped off his mask, he was going to infect people. That was not true. And Rand Paul happened to be correct about that. I know, because I was talking to people who are actual epidemiologists. I was talking to people who are actual doctors, like Dr. Marty Makary over at Johns Hopkins University. And yet we were told by the public health experts, the institutional know-it-alls, that you had to listen to them even if what they were saying was not in consonance with the science. This is what happens when you have an idol-worshiping society, when people have determined that there are people who know more than everybody else, and their expertise, this cult of expertise, has to be paid attention to, even when the experts are speaking not from their own expertise, but via politics. And you can tell, because experts are able to show their work. Experts are able to tell you why they think the things they do. Every day on this show, for months, we've been playing clips of Rochelle Walensky unable to explain her own policies. We've been playing clips for months of Fauci being unable to explain what the hell he's talking about. And then if you say that, then your social media betters shut you down because you're not speaking in consonance with the CDC. Well, the CDC was not speaking in consonance with science. How do we know? Because again, none of the data changed. They changed all their standards yesterday. And the reason they changed all their standards yesterday, to tell people who were vaccinated that now finally they could unmask, had nothing to do with science. It had nothing to do with data. It had to do with the fact that Joe Biden had a terrible couple of weeks politically. It had to do with the fact that inflation is starting to hit, and hit really hard, and not enough people are in the workforce. And Joe Biden has to encourage people to get back into the workforce, because if we don't have enough people back in the workforce going back into their regular lives, inflation is going to spiral out of control. That's what this has to do with. Okay, so the White House's new announcement, their sort of triumphal announcement, you can take off masks, What it really exposes is not that we beat COVID. We beat COVID months ago. What it really exposes is that so much of this has been politically driven and remains politically driven. And if you ask me for my outcome from this, who I trust and who I don't, I'll tell you who I trust. Big Pharma, who actually came up with the actual solution to this thing. I'll tell you who I don't trust. The government sources who lied to you every step of the way. And I don't mean that they made mistakes. Making mistakes is understandable. In the early days of the pandemic, there were a lot of mistakes made. Understandable. It was a novel coronavirus. We didn't know all that much about it. But then it became overt lying. And we've had overt lying for months on end. And that becomes clear when finally they tell the truth. Okay, so yesterday, the White House puts out an announcement via Twitter in the middle of the day. Big news from the CDC. If you're fully vaccinated, you do not need to wear a mask indoors or outdoors in most settings. We've gotten this far. Whether you choose to get vaccinated or wear a mask, please protect yourself until we get to the finish line. Okay, so here's the thing. Even the CDC guidance is stupid because the CDC guidance says that if you're vaccinated, you still have to wear a mask if you go on a plane, for example. Why? Why? There's no reason for it. They say if you're on public transit, you still have to wear a mask. They say that if there are stores that ban you from coming inside without a mask, even if you're vaccinated, that's perfectly okay as well. They say that if you're in a doctor's office, that you're supposed to still wear a mask even if you're fully vaccinated. Okay, this is all stupidity. Now, some of this is rooted in another level of ideology, which is, how do we tell who's vaccinated and who isn't? And if we remove the mask rules, then what if unvaccinated people take advantage of this to unmask along with the vaccinated people? And the answer is, if you are vaccinated, you should not care. Nancy Pelosi said that she is not going to change the rules on the House floor. She said, until everybody is vaccinated, I'm not going to change the rules on the House floor. Why? Everybody there's had the opportunity to be vaccinated. If they don't want to be vaccinated, that's a them problem. There's a small subgroup of people who do have a problem. That small subgroup of people are people who literally cannot get the vaccine. I'm not talking about it's unavailable to them because the vaccines are available to everybody at this point, even if you have to drive a little bit. Okay. The vaccines, there are some people who can't get them for actual medical reasons. Okay. For those people, there are N95s available. For those people, there are masks available. They have to protect themselves. Understood. But the notion that the rest of society is supposed to continue masking up and not going to work is ridiculous. Okay, so even the CDC's current standards make no sense. But again, the reason that I'm rather ticked off this morning is because the people who claim to speak in the name of the science never did. And now that they are speaking in the name of the science, they claim they were always speaking in the name of the science. So they're retconning history. They lied to you for months. Now they're telling you the truth. And because they're telling you the truth today, they're suggesting they were telling you the truth all along. And that is untrue. This is all politics. The experts are not interested in conveying you to the data. They're not interested in conveying to you the science. They are interested in what gets Joe Biden where he needs to go. And if Joe Biden was stuck in this sort of catch-22, where the COVID pandemic had to be extended in order for him to get his jollies in terms of policy, and then it turns out that his policy jollies were undercutting the health of the American economy and he was feeling the blowback, then he has to shift one or the other, right? Either he has to shift his policy or he has to shift the COVID pandemic talk or both. And that's exactly what you are seeing right now. This has nothing to do with science and everything to do with politics. Yesterday, Rochelle Walensky, who just 3 weeks ago, based on no data at all, was suggesting that doom was on the way. Rochelle Walensky, who less than a week ago was suggesting you needed to continue masking even if you'd been vaccinated. Despite all of the data, this public health expert, right, science as an institution versus science as a process, Rochelle Walensky, she says, you know what, now you can take off your mask.
Anyone who is fully vaccinated can participate in indoor and outdoor activities, large or small, without wearing a mask or physical distancing. If you are fully vaccinated, you can start doing the things that you had stopped doing because of the pandemic. Once you are fully vaccinated, 2 weeks after your last dose, you can shed your mask.
Okay, and then she says, you know what drove this? What drove this is science, of course. Now, here's the thing. Have there been any new studies? Nope, not a one. Not a one. We knew this months ago. Months ago.
This is precisely what I was trying to get at with the director of the CDC, Dr. Walensky, when I spoke to her after. And she was asked twice about this during the conference, once by Caitlin, and she sort of dodged it, saying, there's going to be more guidance forthcoming on this. The science sort of applies still here. It still applies, right? The science is indoors, large gathering or small gathering. If everyone is vaccinated, you don't need to wear masks.
Okay, Sanjay Gupta said the science didn't change anything. Okay, the science has been known. It's been known. You know how I know that? Because I've been saying it for months. And every time you say, oh, you're a science denier. No, I'm a scientific institution denier. I don't believe that these quote unquote institutions have a monopoly on the process of science, and they demonstrate their unverifiable nonsense every single day. It's incredible to me. Okay, it just pisses me off that for months we were told that you were somehow putting people at risk when you were not. This administration undermined vaccines. This administration for months had Joe Biden out there telling you, a week ago, he was telling you it was patriotic to mask up after you and your friend were vaccinated. If you were sitting in close contact, you should mask because you're patriotic. He said that last week. Okay, and now, magically, you can take off the masks forever. Okay, the answer is, had nothing to do with science. Yes, he created vaccine hesitancy. Yes, he undermined the American economy. Yes, he was lying to you. They were all lying to you. Okay, you'll remember that just a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week ago, there was a CDC masking chart that was put out, right? It was supposed to change the standards for what you can do if you're fully vaccinated. And it said that if you were outdoors, you could unmask if you were fully vaccinated. And even if, and then they said that if you were fully vaccinated, you still had to wear a mask if you went to a crowded outdoor event like a live performance parade or sports event. And everything indoors you were supposed to mask. And you'll remember I went through this chart in detail. I went through every line of this chart and I said, everything on the right-hand side of this chart is a lie. Go back and watch the tape. Everything that says fully vaccinated people that you're not supposed to do, it's a lie. You can do all of these things and you don't need a mask for any of them. I said this 2 weeks ago. Okay, and then we were so worried about social media that YouTube was going to give us like check marks and take down our videos because this is what social media does. It had nothing to do with facts. Okay, so here's the new CDC graphic, by the way. Oh, wait, it looks exactly like what I told them to do. Go back and look at the tape. Honestly, we should pull the clip of me saying what this chart should look like versus what the chart now looks like. They are identical. Okay, the whole thing is ridiculous on its face. It's ridiculous. So Anthony Fauci came out yesterday and he said, you know what? We have to get rid of restrictions so people can feel like they're getting back to normal. I have a question. Where is Anthony Fauci and what have you done with him? Where's the real Anthony Fauci? Where'd you get this imposter? Here's Anthony Fauci saying, maybe this will cause people to get vaccinated. This is the same administration that refused to acknowledge that you could go out and live life after getting vaccinated. This is the same administration that undermined vaccines by suggesting that we had to pause the J&J rollout because there were 6 cases out of 6 million people who had blood clots. And here's Anthony Fauci saying, maybe this will encourage people to get vaccinated. You know who's been saying this for months? Right here. Who's got 2 thumbs and been saying that? This guy. Here's Anthony Fauci.
What we're doing now with the relaxation of the restrictions on people who are vaccinated is trying to get back to a degree of normality which people who get vaccinated deserve to have that. That's been one of the things that's been the concern, saying, if I get vaccinated, what difference is it going to make? My life hasn't really changed that much. Well, now your life is going to change that much. For people who are not vaccinated, this might be an incentive for them to get vaccinated.
Okay, so it's amazing. Now he's saying what is scientifically true. So is he lying before or is he lying now? For the left, amazingly, they're saying he's lying now. The left is like, well, I don't even know why they're saying we should take off our masks. Maybe we should wear our masks forever. First of all, let me just say this. You are a sheep. You're a sheep if you are wearing a mask now. If you're wearing a mask and you've been vaccinated, it's because you're a sheep. You're free to be a sheep. It's a free country, but you are. You're living life in fear for no reason. These vaccines are unbelievably effective. Even your own garbage administration is telling you that. Okay, but Anthony Fauci, I love this. The flip in time is just incredible. I mean, you're getting whiplash here. Here's Anthony Fauci saying, this is a step in the right direction. Yeah, we noticed.
I wouldn't go so far as to say it's essentially over. I think this is a very important step in the direction of trying to get back to some degree of normality, because this is something that everyone has had on their mind. I'm vaccinated. When can I start doing things a little bit more in the normal trend? And being able to go around without a mask indoors as well as outdoors is really a big step in that direction. So I wouldn't want to declare victory prematurely, but I'm saying this is clearly a step in the direction that we want to go.
Unbelievable. By the way, how bad is the whiplash here? Here's how bad the whiplash was. Yesterday afternoon, the CDC announced that if you had been vaccinated, you could take off your mask. Just before that, Joe Biden had a meeting in the White House with the House Minority Leader and the House Majority Leader, and the Speaker of the House and all the various leaders of the various parties. Everybody in the room had been vaccinated. And there's a picture going around of every single person in the room wearing a mask. And so a senior Biden advisor, Andy Slavitt, who's been wrong on 3/4 of this stuff, Andy Slavitt, a COVID advisor to Biden, was asked, so why was Joe Biden masked? He is vaccinated. Everyone in the room is vaccinated. Here was Andy Slavitt's answer yesterday morning, before the CDC announced that, by the way, you can take off the mask.
I'm not sure that the president is the average person. I personally think there's a lot of protections around the president. Why does he need lots of Secret Service agents? Why do they, belt and suspender everything with the president? Because he's a very important person. And I think you shouldn't take your mark just by what you see in the Oval Office. I think most people, if you're indoors around other people that are vaccinated, the CDC says it's okay. And I think you should listen to the CDC on that.
I mean, it's unreal. So basically, he has no rationale whatsoever, but they were still promulgating this crap, knowing that it was crap. And then the CDC changed its standard later in the day. Again, all of this had to do with the fact that Joe Biden is a giant failure of a president. And because he's a failure of a president, he needs to declare early victory. Remember, the original date they were going to declare victory was July 4th. Why? Because they wanted the symbolic victory on July 4th. And because they were hoping that before July 4th, they could ram through these trillions of dollars in spending. Then it turns out the inflation blew up. It turns out that Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema weren't going to go along with it. And so Joe Biden had a choice. I can continue to foster this world-beating giant spending agenda and blow out the economy in the process. Or I can walk this thing back a little bit. And so he decided yesterday that it was time for a new news cycle. That's what this really is about. You're not talking about manipulation of science on behalf of politics. This is it. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all our future content.